So our topic will be your loans receivable. For loans receivable, we need your initial measurement and your subsequent measurement. So for initial measurement of our loans, your loans is initially measured based on our fair value plus transaction cost. Fair value plus transaction cost. Because your loans receivable is accounted using your PFRS 9. But pursuant to fair value plus transaction cost, your loans receivable is computed by getting first your principal amount plus direct origination cost less direct origination fee. So principal amount less direct origination cost less direct origination fee. Take note, whenever we have a indirect origination cost, indirect origination cost will be part of your expense and not considered part of your loans receivable. And direct origination fee is deducted because this is the amount received out of the charging of the loan. How about the subsequent measurement? The subsequent measurement is your effective interest method. And we already have discussed your effective interest method before during your notes receivable. Now, let's focus ourselves into the impairment of your loan. So in the impairment of your loan, before we have your now we have your PFRS 9. But before, we have your PAS 39. So under PFRS 9, we are using your expected credit loss model. While under your PAS 39, we are using your incurred loss model. So what's the difference? Under PFRS 9, we expect already the credit loss. Therefore, we determine a probability of default. While in your incurred loss model, we just recognize an impairment upon happening of the loss. So under PFRS 9, we expect the loss, while in your PAS 39, we only recognize impairment upon happening of the loss. So how do we compute for your impairment of loan? So under PAS 39, generally, we compare the present value of cash flows less the carrying amount. And generally, the carrying amount is equal to your face amount plus any interest that is considered accrued. While your present value of your cash flows is the cash flows discounted using the original effective interest rate. So present value of cash flows less carrying amount, this is your impairment loss under PAS 39. While under PFRS 9, we determine a probability of default. So what do we do? So present value of cash flows less your carrying amount, this is the total impairment. Less multiplied by the probability of default, this will be your ending impairment. And this ending impairment is known as your allowance for impairment loss or your AFIL. So since it is an allowance and that is the ending allowance for impairment, okay? So we place it as your ending. So if it is your ending allowance for impairment, we have, of course, your beginning. Beginning, you add your impairment loss. If ever there is a recovery, you remove the recovery. But generally, it is only like this. Beginning plus impairment loss equals ending. Therefore, since what we get here is the ending impairment, you need to work back to get for your impairment loss. You need to work back to get for your impairment loss. So what is the difference therefore? Under PFRS 9, whenever you see a problem with a probability of default, then we are using PFRS 9. But if there's no probability of default, take note, Once there is no probability of default in the problem, then you will still make use of your impairment under your PAS 39. Again, use PFRS 9 if there's probability. If there's no probability of default, we still make use of your PAS 39. Actually, they are almost the same, with the difference of these items only. The inclusion of a probability of default and the inclusion of allowance for impairment loss. The inclusion of your allowance for impairment loss. And furthermore, we have your we have your impairment gain. What is this impairment gain? Impairment gain is known as your reversal of impairment loss. So what is the difference of your impairment gain under PFRS 9 and the old standard under PAS 39? So before, under PAS 39, the reversal must be up to the extent only of the should be carrying amount, assuming there is no impairment. Okay? Reversal under PAS 39 is only up to the extent of the should be carrying amount, assuming there is no impairment. Therefore, there is a limit here. What is the limit? The should be carrying amount. While under PFRS 9, the impairment gain or the reversal of impairment loss has no limit. Okay? Impairment loss reversal or the impairment gain has no limit. So this no limit, therefore, will be placed in your profit or loss. Profit or loss. So take note of this, guys, that under your PFRS 9, there is no limit of reversal, while under PAS 39, there is a limit. And when will we use PFRS 9 again? If there is a probability of default. And when will we use your PAS 39? If there's no probability of default. Furthermore, under your impairment, under PFRS 9, we have your so-called 12-month credit loss and the lifetime credit loss. Right? 12-month credit loss and lifetime credit loss. What is this 12-month credit loss? If ever the expected credit loss has not significantly increased. Okay? If the expected credit loss has not significantly increased, we call it your 12-month. If ever your expected credit loss significantly increased, we call it a lifetime credit loss. Okay? So let's wrap up everything here. So our subsequent measurement is your effective interest method. However, it is subject to impairment. So your impairment is depending whether it is an old or the new standard. Under the old standard, you just compare the present value of cash flows to the carrying amount, and the difference is known as your impairment loss. While under the new, the present value of cash flows, you multiply it to your carrying amount, that is your total impairment loss, multiplied by your probability of default. This is your ending allowance for impairment loss. As to your reversal, we call this reversal as impairment gain. Under your old one, your reversal is up to the extent of should be carrying amount, or also known as your limit as to your reversal. However, under the new standard, there is no limit of impairment gain. And this no limit will be presented both in your profit or loss. That's it for your loans receivable.